If ever your life could be a true crime podcast episode, then this podcast is for you. We're about to embark on a roller coaster of emotions, insights, survival, and stories about escape. So buckle up and let the journey begin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Escape Pod. I'm Julie.
I'm Charity.
And we are so glad to have you listening today. We're talking about escaping all the things in the Escape Pod. What are you escaping today?
Cherry angiomas.
Oh, I don't know what that
those
means.
Are? So they
Nope.
they look like red moles. So they look like little blood blisters.
I have those.
Okay. Well, I learned because of my dermatologist. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to flash you. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So I went in this week.
She's not really, but there's a
laser
spot.
treated. This is way better than what it looked like.
Oh.
But I had 60 of them.
Oh, my.
So she was taking that laser gun and bzz, 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 bzz.
Zapping
So I
ya.
look like I have like cigarette burns or something.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, chickenpox scars or something all over me. But
And
but
how
they're
long?
healing pretty well.
How long till they are healed?
Well, at the rate they're going, I think a couple weeks I should be good to go.
Okay.
Yeah. So my last checkup was in the summer. She's like, "Yeah, we can do this. Just wait till the winter when you're not out in the sun and you're not tan." And
Do they bother you?
they don't hurt, but they only bother me in the sense that I have this terrible subconscious habit of with long, like when I'll scratch at things
Picking at
that
them.
shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And you know how sometimes you'll get a skin imperfection, you scratch and it comes off, it goes away.
Uh-huh.
And I'll do that and it's like, oh wait, that's not, it's probably attached. It's not, yeah.
Oh.
So, and my son, when he was little, he was 5-ish, he had a different kind of angioma, but he had one on his cheek.
Oh, yeah.
And then he, and it would bother him. But he walked into my bedroom one night and, Mom, my face is wet. And I flipped on the light, and I mean, it was a horror movie. I mean, there's just blood everywhere. So then we had to take him in and have it cauterized.
Yep.
And he hated us. It was so painful and awful and traumatic. But so no, I've never burst one open.
Okay.
But so now they're like, because they've been lasered, like some of them are inverting, and
Okay.
it's just a weird thing. But I'm like, I'm just getting so many of them. It's aesthetic. It doesn't hurt anything.
They don't.
But she's like, yeah, it's genetic. You're going to get more. So she's like, I'm like, so how often can we do this? She's like, do it once a year if you want. Like, okay. So
Yeah, I was also told they are genetic.
Yeah.
Because I was like, really? The girl
she's
said,
like, well,
yep.
does your mom or dad? I'm like, I have no idea. And she's like, oh.
Yeah, I think I even remember my grandma having them. So then it was like, okay, that makes a little more.
I don't remember
little
ever
more
seeing them.
sense.
So I was like, what the heck is that? When I saw my first one, I'm like,
Yeah.
do I have cancer? What's going on?
Well, I'm glad you
and
do
then
not.
it's like, and then it was just like, they just kept like hopping all over the place. So mostly my torso, my chest, big one under my, just big one. My very first one is actually on my back. It's on my low back. And so I went and actually got a whole tattoo put around it because it was so big and I didn't know. I'm like, let's just cover it up.
Okay.
So he didn't tattoo on it, but all around it and just incorporated it into the art. So
Okay.
she couldn't get that one because of the tattoo.
Did you do a tattoo at bingo the other night?
I did not.
Were you tempted?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, if I'm going to get a tattoo, it's incredibly intentional. I'm not going to do one on a spur of the moment.
The number of people who did one
I know.
on the spur of the moment. I was shocked.
Yeah.
I've gone 40 plus years and never given serious thought to getting a tattoo.
So let me ask you this. If they did invisible ink, would you get a tattoo just so you could have the experience?
I doubt it.
No?
Because I don't like
pain.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I don't intentionally want something to hurt or potentially hurt. And I don't know. The idea of permanence would bother me.
Well,
Certainly being
no one would see
invisible
it.
would be different. Yeah, if that were.
So you've never been curious like what it feels like or
Not really.
Okay.
No. Because people say, and somebody said to me last night, it's addictive. Once you get one, you got to have more. And I'm like.
It is. I don't know what it is. There's some receptor in the brain that is getting satisfied when you are being, attacked and assaulted by a tattoo gun. I don't know. Like it's almost meditative state. I don't like it's pain, but it's not. I don't know. It's really hard to put into words, but it is. Every time I've gotten one, immediately I'm like, ooh, what's next? But I don't go do it. I just so I mean, it takes many years for me to decide what I want. And
so our friends at Robbinsdale Lounge with their Wednesday night bingo, that was a thing. One of their big sponsors is a tattoo artist, and he set up shop right there. And the funniest part was he was right behind me, basically, that they were set up because I have a table set up with materials about One Heart, this amazing place where I work. And people would come up and be like, so how do I get a tattoo? And I'm like, you need to talk to them.
Well,
you do not want me tattooing anything.
They also thought that the proceeds from the tattoos were coming to us.
Yes,
I'm like,
no.
I don't think that's the case. And one
Just
lady
bingo cards.
was waiting for hers, and I'm like, oh, you're getting a tattoo? She's like, yeah, like proceeds benefit One Heart. And I'm like, I don't think it does. And she goes, oh.
Unless they were doing something they didn't alert us to.
I mean, that could be, but
knowledge,
I don't think that was the case. So.
Well, that's very sweet of somebody to want
like,
to
I
get
will
ink
mark
on
this
our
on my
behalf.
body.
Oh, classic.
So what are you escaping?
My eye issue. I have a really...
She keeps winking at me. I don't know what's happening.
I have a wonky contact, and I took it out earlier, but wearing my glasses with the headset on to do this little thing we call the Escape Pod podcast was hurting my ears.
Yeah,
so
Julie's
I went back.
being a good sport because I'm going to be gone, so we're like cramming a lot into this week. So
yeah, you said this episode is a lot that I need to buckle up in my swivel chair. Bananas.
Well, I've said that before, but I need a better word than bananas because it is so off the hook, and it's a true story.
They're the strangest ones.
It's a true story. And it's just like, I mean, I'm never going to be one to victim or survivor blame. Mm-hmm. It is just remarkable how some of these predators get away with the things that they do and how they explain these things so that good, well-intentioned people go, I mean, they're not thinking nefarious thoughts all the time, right? So they're easy to, you want to see the best. You want to think that other people are just like you and see the good in people. And so this is, what did you say earlier? Hold on to your swivel chair. Hold on to your swivel chair, Julie.
Okay. Tell me more.
So first of all, some triggers. This is going to involve tales of sexual child abuse, rape, and kidnapping.
Well, way to lay it out there for me.
Okay, run now.
I can't. I'm running the board.
Okay, you want one of these? You want one of these Box Rescue Remedy stress relief? Okay. So 1978, I was 5 years old. You were not born, so shut up.
Dream in my parents' life.
Okay.
A glint in their eye, if you will.
This guy by the name of Robert Berchtold, we're going to call him B. That's what everybody called him, B, just the letter. Mm-hmm. So this guy's a traveling salesman, and he figured out a way to franchise what he was selling so that other people would kind of do some of the work for him. And as he's, creating or recruiting salespeople to help him with his franchise, a lady by the name of Heidi Brewer meets him in 1978 when her mom inquired about purchasing a franchise for whatever product he was hawking. I don't know if I ever found out what that was. Guy, super charismatic, had a way with the ladies. They all liked him. And Heidi is thinking, okay, her divorced, lonely mom is probably really interested in this guy in more than just a franchise opportunity. When they moved from Texas to Salt Lake City to be close to this guy where he lived, and this was approximately 45 minutes away from where he lived. So B starts helping them out. They help her and her mom get settled into an apartment, and he becomes like a frequenter of their apartment. But I mean, hey, he's given her a job essentially, helping her with this move and all of that. So they probably think they have a really good friend in this guy, right? I mean, her mom trusted him so much, she even gave him his own key to their apartment.
Okay.
Okay. And this was Heidi. She was a super shy, reserved little girl with an overprotective mom. So it was really baffling to her that mom let this pretty much near stranger have a key to their apartment. Like that never quite computed with her.
Okay.
He took a liking to Heidi, though, like a father figure, if you will, and took her on weekend trips under the guise of spending time with his 5 children, which, if you're a mom and you're like, oh, this guy has 5 kids, he's a dad. He's maybe safe, right?
Maybe I've heard too many stories.
Okay. So,
because I would not be so quick to send my child with a near stranger.
My parents sent me with strangers all the damn time. So I wouldn't have with my kids. Not a chance in hell. But he invites her to this weekend trip with his 5 children. Mom signs off on it. He takes Heidi, B does. And when they arrive, shock, the house is empty. There's no 5 kids. He takes her out for dinner and a movie and ice cream and then back to where he lived. And then he gave her a, quote, vitamin to take.
I'm already angry.
This guy maybe he was hawking health supplements because he was way into vitamins, as we'll learn later.
We're 10 minutes in, and I'm already annoyed.
Skin is crawling? Mm-hmm. Yeah. If he would have gotten that look from you, maybe we would have saved all these victims. Yeah. She refused to swallow it, though. She was like, spidey sense was tingling. She didn't like it. So he crushed it up and he mixed it in sugar for her. And then she doesn't remember much of what happened after that. But when she woke up in the morning, she was sick to her stomach. This goes on for years. This pattern of he takes her whatever, gives her vitamins, blah, blah, blah. He gives her back to her mom. And when she was older, he admitted to giving her sleeping pills so that he could rape her without injuring her. So he was a conscientious rapist, if you will. Okay.
Still a rapist.
Yeah.
Changes nothing.
How old did I say she was? Did I say?
I thought she was pretty young.
She is pretty young. I don't know.
Like 11?
I think she was 10.
Okay.
Something around there. It's probably coming up. I did these notes a long time ago. I haven't looked at this for a while, so forgive me. Okay. And then when, after this went on for years, he started not giving her a sleeping pill, so she was awake and with it during the rapes. He'd made his move. He terrorized this sweet, quiet, shy girl who didn't know how to ask for help and find her voice. And she wasn't even sure that this behavior was wrong, because there was another girl that he always talked about, quote, seeing at the time. And so she thought, okay, my mom's not giving me information here, so maybe this is just the way of the world.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, poor
and then she says the abuse began happening daily because her mom worked 2 jobs and B would pick her up from school because he was such a helpful gentleman. And she said it didn't matter. He would take her to his house, a motor home, her apartment, eat car, wherever. Total monster. He just had to do his thing. So it progresses. This guy can't get enough. Heidi remembers one time she was with him. He actually goes to pick up another little girl, and he took turns abusing each of them while the other would wait outside.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. So Heidi was 10, and the other little girl was 12. And she says in an article she wrote about her story, telling about this ordeal, that when you're young and ignored and starved for a father, this kind of attention is better than no attention at all or being overlooked.
Speaking of attention, I remember seeing or watching a video or something years ago where it was, intended to help parents avoid predatory behavior. And it said if somebody expresses more interest in your child than you, there's an issue.
Run the other way.
Yeah.
Pack your child up.
Yeah. It's not...
Call the police.
Not healthy.
No.
Other people should not care more about your children than you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. Her mom's working 2 jobs.
Yes.
She's entrusting and desperate probably. And
I'm not blaming the mom
for
a man's bad behavior, but that is a sign that there could be a problem.
Yeah. So this goes on for a while, and then B starts telling Heidi this wild story about aliens talking to them through his car. But she was smart. She saw him hit play on a tape recorder. And then there was literally this garbled, otherworldly, being played. And I mean, she wasn't buying it. Like, okay. But however, as crazy as he was, the abuse continued until she was like 14 or 15.
Okay.
But it was around 12 or 13 when she started realizing that it was wrong.
Okay.
Okay. So she did start to figure these things out without help. There were differences in how B treated her versus her friends' dads and how they would treat her.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime she inquired about those differences, he'd get really mad at her and tell her that if she didn't get in line and do what he said, he would abuse his own daughter, whom Heidi was really good friends with and wanted to protect.
What a scumbag.
Yeah. When she was 17, she started dating a boy. B is not happy about this, and that was when she told her mom about the abuse. Get this. Mom had suspected it the whole time, and her way of coping was to have Heidi stay the night with a friend and invite her own friends over. That's how, like, you just told me this horrific news that I suspected, so go stay with your friends because I can't probably look at you because I've put you in this situation. So can you imagine what Heidi was feeling? She said that although her mom was unaffectionate, there were no hugs or I love yous and things like that as she was growing up. She never expressed any remorse or apologized for placing her in that situation, but she did call the police.
The mom called the police?
Yes.
Okay.
So she did call the police. Heidi gave her statement, but she didn't have to testify due to her age.
Okay.
And then she was sent back to Texas to live with a brother.
Okay.
So that's Heidi.
Okay.
Now we're going to jump to the other girl he was seeing.
Wow.
Okay. The 12-year-old.
Because he's delusional.
And this is the things that, like, I mean, this first part with Heidi, bad enough.
Uh-huh.
This other stuff, like, this family, just wait. Okay, just wait. So this happened now in Pocatello, Idaho, where B tormented and just destroyed an entire family named the Brobergs. So there's mom, Marianne, dad, Robert, 3 daughters, very wholesome, loving, close-knit family. And the story starts before Heidi's story, but again, when he picked them up at the same time, that's how she kind of learned about it after everything came out about what happened to the Brobergs at the hands of this shitbag. So June of 1972, Marianne Broberg, mom in this story, meets Bob Berchtold B at church after choir practice. He goes to church, he's in the choir, he's got to be a good guy, right? He was married with 5 children also, and these kids just happened to be about the same ages as her 3 daughters. So, I mean, obviously, we have inherently, we have affinity for things like us, right?
Yes,
so
correct.
It made her feel comfortable. The Brobergs and the Berchtolds clicked. B's wife, Gail, she was quiet, but Marianne befriended her, and they became very close. And then they just kind of became, family. B was really part of the fabric of the family, took them out for outings. He was kind of like the fun dad to all the kids. But his attentions were definitely on Jan. And according to one of the sisters who thought it was strange that B called the sister Dolly. He had a cute little nickname for her and called her Dolly. So Jan was 12 when B first abducted her. There's an audio recording of this guy calling her Dolly and telling her he loved her and that no man could love any woman more.
Not okay.
This recording, it's beyond gooseflesh. Like when I heard it, it's like, we'll come back to the recording. Anyway, it's just like, what the actual hell?
Right.
He kissed her. He wrote and read poetry about her and to her. She told him she loved him. I love you too. He was like fascinated with her. But she loved him like a second father, the fun dad. She felt safe with him. She felt like one of his kids. But they were very clearly on 2 different wavelengths regarding their relationship.
Yeah.
So October of 74, so now this is a couple years into this, B asked if he could take Jan horseback riding. He picked her up from piano lessons, gave her an allergy pill. So she could
That's
be
what they call it these days.
Yep. It would help her be around the horses, Julie. Come on. Okay. She passes out. Weird. Has no recollection of the stables, the drive, of him. And he did not bring her home that night.
Whoa.
So Gail goes over to the Brobergs' home. So Gail is Bee's wife, goes over to the Brobergs' home and tells them not to do anything yet because she's just sure they'd be back any minute. Gail is what we call an enabler. Gail knows what the hell her husband is up to.
Right.
And it's really sad. So the Brobergs didn't call the authorities for 2 days.
Oh, my gosh.
And when they finally tried, the FBI office was closed. So now it's on day 5 of Jan missing. They finally get through to the FBI and they hook up with an agent named Pete Welsh. So when Pete goes to interview them, they talked about Bee as a fellow believer. These are all members of the Mormon Church. Pillar of the community, fellow businessman, just an all-around good guy. So something must have happened to them both, right?
Okay.
This is what they're thinking.
This is what we're telling ourselves.
Yep. And the agent had to convince Jan's parents that she had been kidnapped. And when Gail told them about a motorhome they had in storage being gone, it all started coming into focus.
Man.
So finally, and luckily, a call comes in from a state park about an abandoned vehicle. Blood is on the window, broken from the inside out. It was believed that Bee left it at the scene and staged it so that it would look like foul play was involved and that they'd both been victims, feeding into the Brobergs' opinion of this guy. Like, oh, no, he'd keep our daughter safe, right? But because you're already not clueless and we already did Heidi's story, obviously this guy's a pedophile. Really likes little girls more than he should. And he tried getting to 2 other little girls in the same community before their parents drove him out, like the devil he is. But part of his strategy, of course, as is very prevalent in this kind of behavior, is to separate the prey from their family, right?
Sure.
So he did everything he could to be around the family, which meant he was around little Jan. So one time she recalls sleeping on the trampoline with other kids and siblings and Bee also, and woke up with her panties around her ankles. His hands were on her. He convinced her she was just restless. She didn't believe he would ever harm her.
Again, a child who, if this was their first experience,
well,
you don't want to think somebody has done something bad to you.
But and it really may be her first conscious experience.
Right.
Because he's knocked her out with allergy pills, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Fair.
So then he takes her on a trip to Seattle, and sitting at dinner, she got woozy and sick and, kind of started talking weird. And she's aware of this. Takes her back to the motel. She's barely conscious. She wakes up and sees him naked.
Ugh.
Right?
Ugh.
2 years before this incident, he began devising a plan to destroy Marianne and Bob, her parents, so he could somehow take Jan permanently. So he called Marianne to bring him a sandwich at work. That's how close they were. He was more charismatic than her husband. He would compliment her body. He would flatter her. He made her feel good about herself, and she was attracted to him. So, at a church function in the mountains of Utah, went back home, tried to fake it. And although they didn't have sex this time, the excitement kind of stuck with her, and she was invested now. He also went into Bob's store one time, and Bob owned a flower shop, came in to ask him to go for a drive. He said he just couldn't stand his wife, Gail, and needed to have some kind of sexual relief. So Bob was, in his words, I'm not calling him stupid, but Bob's words in this documentary, he was stupid enough to relieve Bee. And it crushed him, like it destroyed everything about him. It turns out Bee entered into a homosexual relationship with Jan's father in order to be around Jan. He figured this was the way he could get them out of the way with blackmail. That was the whole goal, to be able to have something to blackmail them over. So now we're at January of 1974. The LDS Church reprimanded and counseled Bee for his obsession with little girls. They sure showed him. And he told Marianne and Bob Broberg that he was in counseling, told him that he'd had sex with an aunt when he was 4 years old, and that part of his therapy was spending time with Jan alone.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Even telling Dad that he could talk to the doctors if he wanted.
Well,
I don't know how, but these people were just duped beyond belief. I don't know. I just don't get it. And part of it is, the church is helping him, redemption. I don't know, but
Yeah. I'm kind of speechless because I don't know either.
and I don't know how much of it was now this potential of blackmail.
Right.
Right? Like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, if my husband finds out that I've been in a relationship with this guy, or if my wife finds out I'm in a relationship with this guy,
Yeah.
like, so the doctor B was seeing was not even a licensed psychologist, right?
Of course it wasn't.
Yeah. So if they had talked to him, I don't know if it would have made a difference. But how did this work? The psych, whatever, the fake doctor gave him tapes to listen to while he laid next to Jan while she was sleeping. And this was like supposed to be some kind of therapy. I don't know what was on the tapes.
Whoa.
But I mean, you're just
What a
walking straight
quack.
into the lion's den, right?
Yes.
Yeah. They had no idea. I mean, no idea that these monsters, like child molesters existed, especially not from a church member. So they trusted. He brainwashed. I mean, this guy slept in Jan's bed for like 4 times a week for 6 months. They let this happen. So let's talk about the abductions now. October of 1974, Jan is taken for the first time, like I said, when she was 12. Okay. She'd been drugged, woke up in the dark place, had the sensation she was moving. So that first time she goes missing, this is what her experience was.
Okay.
She was bound at the ankles and wrists, and she had a monotone voice in her ear through an intercom, making her think she was abducted by aliens.
I mean, he has some alien-like tendencies.
Well, just wait.
Out of this world
Yeah.
ways of thinking.
He does. Next time she wakes up, the restraints are off, and then she was informed by an alien that she was part alien herself, and that her mom was her actual mom, but her real father was an alien. And this voice convinced her that she needed to have a child that was going to save the alien planet by the time she turned 16. And if she couldn't fulfill the request, they would have to take her sister. So she knew she had to do it, and they told her they would provide her with a male companion to make this happen. And when she left the bed and went to a different room, there was B on the couch. He was bloody and cut up. And this was someone she trusted, right? So she felt like, okay, she's no longer alone. B looked dead, so she cried and she shook him, tried to wake him up. He comes to and he tells her that a white light came down from the sky and they must have been taken by the light, and that he was the male companion and that they needed to have a child.
Hard no.
Yeah.
I'd be like, go back to the light, sir. Go back to the light.
She was not.
I know.
Already been
She's
brainwashed.
Oh, poor thing.
So he got her to believe it. He also kept her drugged. He showed her books on sex, then finally forced her to have sex without being drugged. And this was, I think, in a motorhome. So she would look at the leaves in a little skylight above where they parked and kind of focus on that. And that's how she got through these assaults. He married her in Mexico at 12 years old and tried having his brother convince Jan's parents to let him marry her daughter in the United States, or that he wouldn't bring her back.
Scumbag.
Mm-hmm. So B's brother, this guy knows what's going on. He turns him in, and Mexican law enforcement comes after him, and they found him. And
I like the brother.
Brother's good. Traded a gold ring to a guard in order to be allowed to talk to Jan when he was in jail, where he coached her in what to say and what not to say. They were abducted. Like the aliens, the alien planet, the pill she was given, the mission, like, don't talk about that, which means you can't talk about the sexual experiences as a result, because you have to have this alien baby to save the alien race, right? And if either of them talked about it, her sister Karen would go blind. He convinced her of this because he's already good at brainwashing. And
I mean, the use of family
Yeah.
to get what you want
leverage.
is incredible, and in a bad way.
In a bad way.
Just like, I can imagine why children do end up continuing behavior that they don't want to do and they know is wrong when your family's being threatened.
I'm being hurt. I don't want my little sister to go through this. Yeah.
Yep. Like, I've already been through it. I don't want somebody else to have to go through it.
Exactly.
What?
He also would tell her that they would remove her father, and then take her other little sister, Susan.
See?
Yeah. So she didn't tell her parents so that she wouldn't be vaporized. I mean, like, there was just all these, things in her head. They went to Mexico. Parents did and got her. Parents didn't understand why Jan was so upset when they didn't come for B. They only came for her. She was so mad that they'd called the FBI because she was terrified that B was going to end up getting killed. They sent the marriage certificate back to Mexico with instructions for it to be annulled, which I think it was. And he was indicted on kidnapping charges. They had her examined by a doctor, but the doctor said her hymen had not been removed, so her parents were relieved, but that was completely wrong. He had been raping her, full-on intercourse, raping this little girl. All Jan was concerned with was completing the mission. Like, she's all in, and she knew what the consequences were going to be if they failed. So the FBI tells the Brobergs to stay the hell away from B, but they failed. Gail comes over, asks to talk to Bob alone. Gail, again, she's the classic, probably abused enabler, right?
Yeah.
She asked them to drop the charges against her husband and sign affidavits. And if they didn't, the Berchtolds were going to expose the sexual encounters between them. So the affidavit stated that Berchtold had the Brobergs' permission to take their daughter on vacation to Mexico. So Gail knew exactly what kind of monster she was married to. So B was released. He moved to Ogden, Utah, and sold cars for his brother, went to church. People prayed for him. There's just no amount of prayer that can reform somebody like that.
You're sick.
Yeah.
Like,
you need to be removed from society because you're not safe for people.
Right.
He sneaks back into Jan's room. He brings that damn recorder, and that's what wakes her up. And, with the alien stuff and all the stuff. Then he came in and he talked about the mission. So now she knows he's okay. He gave her instructions on where to go and meet him to receive further instructions. And then she would get like love letters from him and then started returning them. And then she told her mom she wanted to marry him for real this time. And meanwhile, he would call Marianne every day, also telling Marianne that he loved her.
Ew.
Uh-huh. She asked why he married Jan then.
Fair question.
Fair question. He convinced her to meet with him so he could explain, and he told her over and over that he loved her, told her she needed to divorce Bob so they could get married. Things went too far. She slept with him. B called Bob and told Bob what had happened, and that sexual affair lasted for 8 months. She was in love with him too, this guy that had kidnapped her daughter. I don't know what level of charisma this man. I mean, and when you look back, I mean, it's the 70s, and when you look back at the 70s, no one was cute. I mean, the haircuts, the glasses that are windshield size, the whole thing. There's like no aesthetic that's
the porn stash.
Oh, that guy's hot. No, just nothing. But Bob knew in his heart that if it wasn't Marianne, it was Jan. Like, so he's kind of like, it's one or the other. This guy has to be focused on. So B had sex with Jan many times after he got Marianne distracted. Bob files for divorce in order to protect his daughters. And then B calls him again. He won't let Bob go either. He's taunting him. You're going to lose both your wife and now the girls. I mean, he's trying to get Marianne to leave town with the girls so he could have access probably to all of them.
Right.
So the attorney she went to told her that B was just poison and that they needed to stay together for the girls. So they did reconcile in order to kind of protect the family together.
Okay.
They're starting to kind of realize they've been duped,
Sure.
like they were played against one another, and that the safety of their children, their daughters, is more important. So B pled guilty to a felony charge of kidnapping. He was sentenced to 5 years, but the sentence was reduced to, you want to guess?
I feel like probation.
45 days.
Pretty much the same thing.
Might as well be nothing.
Might as well be nothing. Yeah.
He goes to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, family fun center there. Jan wanted to go work there, and her parents wouldn't let her. This was in 1976. When her parents wouldn't let her go work there, she was really, really mad. She made everyone miserable because she didn't get what she wanted. So she ended up trying to hitchhike to Jackson Hole. So her mom saves her by putting her on a plane to Jackson Hole so that she didn't meet a worse fate on the road.
Okay.
I would have chained her to the damn bed, but
Right.
I mean, yeah. But the mission continued. More sex. He'd record their conversations. It was gross. This girl is convinced by him, brainwashed, that she's in love with him. B persisted with threats to Marianne, and he was determined to get to Jan. Like, he is obsessed with this little girl.
Wild.
So then she disappears again because that's what predators do. 1976, she snuck out of her home, and there was a note left on her bed. Dear Bob and Marianne, not Mom and Dad.
Not Mom and Dad.
You won't let me do what's right, so I will do what's wrong. I'm leaving without B and do not plan on coming back until you accept me as me. I cannot accept your religion or your screwed up morals. I just want to be me and have B. Please, before all of us are destroyed, let me go, Jan. But the note really didn't sound like Jan. So they thought it was him, and that, So who'd taken her, even though he called the parents and claimed that Jan had called him to tell him that she'd run away and went and tell him where she was.
I mean, he's such an honest person. I can't
know. imagine
why you would question his explanation for things.
Julie, he just had to really dig up some worry in his voice, and But they're terrified that the word was going to get out. It took them 2 weeks this time to call the FBI. They haven't learned anything.
No.
So B plays it up, acting worried that someone took Jan. And FBI knows it's him. They tap the Broberg's phone. B calls and tells Marianne that Jan had called him, telling him that she was engaging in sex work to get money. 3 months after this, B called asking if they had any updates, and the FBI had been tapping the phone. He threatened to kill her if she was trying to trap him. Like, this is what he's saying to Marianne. And then he tells her that Jan had reached out and told him that she still wanted to marry him. And he told Marianne that there had never been anyone but Jan for him. Now he's admitting this to Mom, who thought they were in love, right?
Right.
So this is now 90 days into this second abduction. They finally find him. They put surveillance on him. They go into his motorhome, and they find posters of her everywhere. Yeah. She'd been gone for months when Jan called out of the blue and said that she just wanted to call and hear their voices and tell them that she loved them and that she still wanted to marry B and he still wanted to marry her, but she hadn't seen him for a couple of weeks, was the story.
Oh.
Okay. So now we're 102 days into the disappearance. FBI surveilled him to a phone booth. He had left a phone book open with a number on it in Pasadena, California, and it was tied to a Catholic girls' school. They found her there under an alias and learned that he'd helped her escape out of a window from the home. He enrolled her in an all-girls boarding school when he took her and told the nuns that he was a CIA agent, that he was her father, but he still had to do CIA work, so he would visit on the weekends, and told them that if anyone came looking for them, that it was really bad people. Don't tell them anything. So the authorities figure it out. They capture them and they bring Jan back to her parents, but she wants nothing to do with her parents at this stage. She's really far gone. Yeah. Her whole childhood had been stolen at this point. She was distant, hollow, just unfeeling. So now we're in 1977, January. The Marianne and Bob get a call that the flower shop is on fire.
Ooh.
And Jan was there watching it burn. And then she kind of realized that it was because of her. Like, that was her, she knew who did it. She internalized it. They all knew it was B who was behind it.
Wow.
And that was when the FBI really, got it through to the Brobergs that this family was in danger.
Yeah.
So B had paid 2 people he'd met in jail $1,000 each to set the shop on fire.
Okay.
But just like the 45 days instead of 5 years, he was acquitted of kidnapping due to a, quote, mental defect.
Well, that's an accurate description.
Still lock him up then.
But still lock him up.
Nope.
Yeah.
He beat the arson and he beat impersonating a CIA agent. He beat the 2 cases of kidnapping. This guy's unstoppable. He was, however, ordered into a mental health facility in June of 1977, but he was released 6 months later because I'm sure he was so reformed. He claims a psychiatrist showed him why he was so attached to Jan. It was because he'd been sexually abused by the help on his stepdad's ranch in Wyoming. He wasn't really part of the family. He slept in the bunkhouse. Mom got sick, left home. Bob took over the care of his kids and blah, 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 blah. So this is why he believed he needed to like take care of a little girl, allegedly. It's just all probably, I don't know if any of this is true.
Right.
Yeah.
This tells me how far we've come in 40 plus years from what I would guess the initial thoughts were about sexual deviancy and pedophilia, and that you could put somebody away for 6 months in some kind of therapy or treatment program. And to this level, I mean, not everything is to this level in our world, but and let him go.
Yeah.
It's
he
bizarre.
may have exhibited some remorse, right?
Sure.
But was it remorse for what he did and who he was and what he was? Or was it remorse for, I'm locked up, damn it, and I can't do the things I want to do?
Like saying the right things.
Yes. They know how to game the system.
Yes.
He's a highly intelligent person.
Unfortunately.
If he could figure out all this alien shit and have it be believable, my Lord. So anyway, Jan is now like 16, and so he's starting to kind of lose interest.
Oh, no.
So she left for an acting camp, met a boy she liked, her age, and the boy bought her an ice cream, and immediately she thought something was going to happen because that was the pattern, right? Someone buys me ice cream, you have sex.
That probably came as a shock to the young man who thought he was just buying ice cream.
And when it didn't, she's kind of like, huh. Then maybe the aliens aren't real either. Like, that's what it took, right?
Wow.
So she starts doubting, but she's still having this interaction with him, and there's this pressure. And she knew, because that prophecy or whatever, that the aliens are telling her, is that if she wasn't pregnant by 16, then she was planning to tell, like, her sister about the mission, kill her sister, and then kill herself because she didn't want her sister to be subjected to this life. So, but her 16th birthday came and went, and nothing critical happened, because what did he say? Like, we're going to die if, like, this. I'm going to get killed, and we have blah, blah, blah. So she starts realizing it's all BS, and then she starts to feel like an idiot, but she didn't know who to tell.
I mean, think how much her development was stunted.
Absolutely.
Like, through all of this.
Well, she was, just traumatized. So she tells her best friend.
Okay.
She totally believed this story. She tells her best friend, this is what I believed. The friend tells her parents. And over 200 times it comes out that she was sexually abused by Berchtold. Her mom started writing a book about the experience and went on speaking tours, and Berchtold would show up to intimidate them.
Because he's out.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, basically, he maintains that Jan went with him willingly and that she made up all the stuff about aliens. It was her, not him. He claims that the sexual favors with her parents were all made up as well. So they all filed restraining orders against him, and she had to face him. It was in court. It was awful, this video, but she did it. He stood there and, he claimed that she was making all this up to make money. She stood up to him.
Well, and what about the age of consent? Like, it doesn't matter if she gave consent. And maybe the laws were different then, in different states are different as far as age goes.
Well, remember, also Mormon.
I would guess that played a role, but at least nowadays you would say a 12, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, like, they're not old enough. It doesn't matter if
religion
they say yes.
or no. Yeah. This is not, correct. They're incapable of providing consent because they are a minor. They are a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but she stood up to him, and they did get the stalking injunction put in place for the rest of his life. So that was good. And then this fun thing, and I mean fun loosely, have you heard about the bikers against kids? Oh, I forgot what BACA stands for. Bikers against kid abduction, or I don't know. There's a biker gang, and they will often go like where children have been victimized, and they will stand guard if there's a predator around. Oh. So she somehow got connected with the BACA bikers, and they were standing guard when she spoke at an event. He does show up. B shows up. Bikers went after him. He had a gun. He was arrested. He was prohibited from having a gun due to his past charges.
Okay.
And he decided he wasn't going to prison. So like any other sociopath, what did he do?
Offed himself.
He offed himself. That son of a bitch never paid for the things he did. So 6 women have contacted Jan and her mom after all of this, saying that they have been abused by this same guy, Heidi being one of them.
Okay.
He'd only spent 1 year in jail for the rape of a child before he'd met her. So she forgave her parents, learning, that they had been dealing with a master manipulator. I mean, the guy was so believable and so cared. I don't know how. I mean, I'm not in that situation, but like sitting out here in my safe bubble, it's really, really difficult to believe.
Well, and I think it doesn't happen overnight, right? Like they weasel their way in. They say the right things. They do the right things.
They also play the long game.
Yeah. Yep. And it was a different time where I guess, I don't know, I wouldn't let I don't have a daughter, but I guess I just know enough now to know, not that I don't trust all men, but certainly I think there's just certain circumstances that you don't willingly put your child into.
You know how all this genetic testing is happening now, and some parents will do that even with their kids to know like what kind of anything could possibly happen. I wonder is there any gene that like what makes a person be this kind of monster?
Yeah.
But then what do you do with them?
Right.
You lock an innocent baby up that hasn't done these things yet because they have the gene. I mean, I have no idea. I'm just totally making this stuff up. But I just can't imagine. And watching this documentary with the parents now realizing that this happened under their watch, the remorse, the weight, years later, the guilt, the shame of we were all, seduced by this guy. I mean, it's got to be so weighty and hard for them to live with this.
I've known a couple of families who were affected by not this level of pedophilia and abduction and all the other things that went along with what he did.
No aliens?
No aliens. But it really did, in both cases, to an extent, broke their family apart.
Sure.
Now, in one case, the core of the family was still intact, but extended family because the perpetrator was a member of the extended family. That connection is long gone. And I think the shame and the guilt that you just mentioned, that stuck with them for sure. And the statute of limitations had passed, preventing.
There should not be a statute of limitation on any of that kind of abuse, ever. The length of time it takes for someone to be able to talk about that or sometimes even put a label on it.
So in this case, that was 20 years, 20 plus years.
Then they should still be held accountable.
Yeah.
That does not give you a pass.
In the other case, the family was broken up. In that case, it was like repressed memories that came out once the one parent came out in the parent when the child hit the age they were when they were abused as a child.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so prior to that, I think pretty happy family. After that, there were medical issues that came up that I would guess now were a result of that childhood trauma.
Body remembers.
Yep, the body remembered. The relationship between the two parents was eventually, not at first, but a few years in, completely broken. Just a lot of heartbreak, and it wasn't their fault. It wasn't any of their faults, In these two families, it wasn't their fault, and yet, like, the consequences were significant and long-lasting. It's so sad.
Well, when you feel like, okay, I'm the protector
Yeah.
and this still happened. It's not my fault, but it still happened under my watch.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
How is my spouse looking at me because I failed?
Yeah.
That's probably part of that mental acrobatics that's being played when, the relationship is disintegrating because just nobody wins. Just nobody wins.
Nope.
And you want your people to have that safety and that wholeness because that's part of that healing. But when then that's broken, I mean, it's just one injury after another in an already horrific situation.
Yeah. And in one case, I mean, they seemed perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They just seemed perfect. And so to know now some of the hurt that was happening, that again, 20 plus years later, finally came out. You just kind of go, you never really know. And if you are listening and, this is recalling any memories for you that you haven't been able to cope with, please seek help. Please seek help. I think it was pretty life-changing for one of the individuals I knew to be able to tell someone. And it started with a relationship that was good,
Healthy.
that she could trust.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I think that there were only a couple of people who knew anything had happened. But work was done. They did therapy, and then eventually they could share with the people who needed to know, this happened to me. But it's heartbreaking. But they're doing well now. Part of the reason they're doing well, though, is because they faced it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my heart goes out to people who have those histories and those pasts that they have to continue to live with. But we hear from people all the time who do find hope and help. And so please reach out. Please, please, please.
That trauma is bigger than
and it
realize.
takes time.
It takes time.
It takes lots of time.
But it also takes support. It's very, very, not to say that, you might be that special unicorn that can do it on your own.
Right.
People have. But
most
why
people can't.
Do that to yourself when there is qualified help that can get you to a better place much sooner? So your life's only so long. Try to live a better quality of life by having that dealt with so it's not clouding your every waking moment.
Yeah, for sure.
So
can we take a quick break?
We can take a please break.
And then we'll have our palate cleanser, as you like to call it, and turn things
This one might be a shot of something flammable. Ugh. No, I'm kidding. There is no alcohol in the escape pod.
There is not.
Not yet.
We'll be right back. Hey listeners, did you know we are podcasting for a cause here in the Escape Pod? Patron support benefits the One Heart campus in Rapid City, South Dakota, where we empower people to overcome crisis and achieve self-sustainability. To learn more, listen to our prologue episode all about One Heart or visit oneheartrc.org. All right, we are about to wrap things up on this edition of the Escape Pod. Charity told me to hold on to my swivel chair, and I did have to hold on. There's so many. I am left with about as many questions as I feel like I went in with, because I think the key being how? So I will just chalk it up to, we know a lot more in 2025 about a lot of things, and criminal behavior specifically, than maybe we did in the mid-70s. And hopefully such individuals don't get away with what that gentleman got away with.
And I'm sorry, too. Just because someone's a member of your church does not mean, sometimes these people do that for a cover.
Yeah. Yep.
It doesn't mean you're inherently a good person.
No, it doesn't.
So please,
I would agree.
Listen to your intuition. Pay attention.
Yeah, for sure.
Woof.
We're going to lighten things up a bit. Any place or mindset you get to escape to coming up?
No, I do have. So I still have on all but one window in my home, like the shades we bought when we first moved in.
Oh, wow.
And so I have new window treatments.
Oh, cool.
And I'm doing it because it's one of those things like, you know, how when my computer was being wonky and I'm like, it's going to go at any time. I better start migrating to a new laptop. And I did that. And sure enough, what happened the other day when we tried to record, that computer starts like,
okay,
it's fine right now. I'm looking at it right now and it's fine. But
it keeps happening.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I applied that same logic to this one. So in my living room, there are 3. There's a big window and then 2 side windows on the Great Wall. And not the Great Wall of China, just the biggest wall. I don't know why it came out of my mouth that way.
The Great Wall of China.
It's not the Great Wall of China. And it wants to come, like it's mounted. And it wants to come out. So every time I go to pull them, it's like, it's going to come out. It's going to, so I'm super careful. And so I upgraded to get the, it's like the Roman shades that you don't have to drill in.
Oh, okay.
They're self-mounting. And I did it to make my husband happy. He's very excited about that, but he's out of town. So that's probably what I'm going to is to get those all installed.
Okay.
Before. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
What am I escaping to? Oh, cream cheese frosting.
Oh, that's a good one.
Are you allowed that?
Oh, that's gluten-free, baby.
I'll just have to bring you the frosting because the banana bars would not be gluten-free. No. I'm so sorry.
Hey, frosting will do it.
I made the banana bars like 2 days ago and I ran out of time to make the frosting. So when I get home today, I'm going to try and get the frosting made. But the banana bars should be like I actually put them in the fridge like you're supposed to. You know how like real cake decorators like freeze or
it's way easier.
That's why it's easier. And so I'm like, oh, I might actually like not ruin the
Look at
bars. It wasn't really on purpose, but you know, it's working out in my favor. So that's what I'm
Take what you can get.
We do have to take what we can get. I agree.
That's right.
All right. Stand by. I lost my script. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate you. And if you like what you heard, please share it with a friend who you think might like it too. We are doing these Escape Pod episodes not just for fun, although they are kind of fun sometimes. This topic was not fun. But we've had other ones that are very fun. And we can just lean on cream cheese frosting when we need to. But hopefully one day we'll be able to provide operational support for One Heart, the nonprofit where we work, where our mission is empowering people to overcome crisis and achieve self-sustainability.
That's right. We are a true podcast for a cause. So when you listen and you share and you spread the word, you can actually feel good about it. So please take just literally 5 seconds, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Really helps small podcasts like us gain more exposure, and more listeners one day will equal more ad revenue. You can check us out, see what we're about at escapepod.live, and link out to our socials for those of you who love social media from there. You can reach out to us at just because she's laughing at me because
that's so funny coming from you.
I don't love social media. I have people do that for me. But you can reach out I do like email. So just because at escapepod.live, if you want to hit me up with a topic idea, anything like that, or just some feedback on the show, or you can share your escape story of any vein, any genre, anything with us at escapeartist@escapepod.live.
I emphasize it can be escaping something like
it can be funny. Yeah.
We like those. So
it can be funny. It can be upbeat.
Send them our way. We like those too.
Absolutely.
We are closing the hatch on this episode of the Escape Pod. Remember, trauma may be inevitable, but how you grapple with it is optional. So stay resilient.
And keep laughing. And don't listen to garbled alien voices.
Don't do it.
In an intercom.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.